my friends. I want to talk today about why dating has gotten so complicated. I spend a lot of time in my DMs and with clients inside of Voxer, inside of programs, in my own masterminds, having this conversation of roadblocks or misconceptions or honestly straight up excuses of why it's not working for that person. So, hi. So if you're one of these people, I want you to tune in. I want you to share this with someone. We're going to land here, be here with me. This is going to be who knows how long. We know I like to riff on Thank Kathleen and all the kind of things. But for today, I'm so excited that you're here. If you are new to my world, hi, my name is Laura Patricia Martin. I am a trauma and relationship specialist, but we like to make it fun. We like to make it juicy. I've been doing this for years after healing from domestic violence and drug addiction and abuse and things of that nature. And really what led me to this is that my mother ended up losing her life to addiction after divorce. And to me, that imprinted in my soul after I had gone down the similar path, that to me, that imprinted in my soul of who can I become within my relationships from an empowered stance, right? Like, how can I take my power back so that I don't fall from this, so that I can stand in my power and attract really good relationships. And it's been a lot of trial and error, but it's been good. And I really do truly believe in everything in my soul. If people in general become living sanctuaries, we can fight the war on drugs and addictions and the loss and the projections and the trauma that we pass to each other. And so that's my biggest mission in this world. And so for today, when we're talking about why has dating gotten so hard, I want to have an open and honest conversation with you and how this has been and the mistakes I see so many people in general. I'm going to be speaking about women and men because that is what I am from, but this can be catered to really any type of relationships, but that is what I am familiar with. And so what mistakes I see is often, if you see me looking over there, it's because I have notes for this live. That's how jazzed I got on this. So if you're seeing my eyeballs dart that way, that's what's happening. So mistakes I hear all the time, and I really want to reframe this because they're excuses, right? Is there's no good men in my city, people in my city. Everyone just wants to fuck. Everyone's afraid of commitment. All they want is, these apps just aren't my thing. The apps suck. The algorithm sucks. Like, I get you. Like, that's so real and alive, and I want to validate your feelings. And the only common denominator from your relationship history is you. And that might suck, and that might be a hard pill to swallow because that is what has changed and revolutionized my entire life. This is something that I talk about like on the back end, and I'm going to talk about this at the end inside of our dating micro mind, which is a 30-day quantum healing into love, where it's a high touch. I have my VIP sessions ditching the dating apps, so that's definitely one that I hear on those calls of just like, the apps suck. And it's like, yes, and I have had some wild experience. Like, I've only been on 4 dates in 6 years using the apps. I've been on plenty of other dates, but 4 dates from the apps. And that was intentional because the apps are used intentionally, right? Like, there's a regulation that happens. It's not just to swipe. It's not just to fill a void. It's not just to be chosen. It's really stepping into that stance of, what am I choosing? How am I showing up to this? What are the conversations I'm leading myself into, and what are my standards? Right? Because what I see far too often is, because we've been in this space, in this world for quite some time, is the focus goes so heavily on how can I get them to fall in love with me? How can I get them to choose me? How can I get them to be, how can I get chosen? And we forget that the main question to be asking is, how do I get to become the type of person that doesn't have to second guess what I'm saying and what I'm doing? We look, and I was literally just on a call with my mastermind, with my mentor, and she was talking about this in business and strategy, but it goes back to relationships as well. We are always looking for a 5-step process on how we can heal dating and how we can, somehow find that match and finally get chosen and find our place. And forgetting that, Dana, hi, beauty. I haven't seen you in so long. How are you? How's your little one? And it gets to this space of forgetting the strength that we have and then building up these masks and then wondering why things aren't working. But the reason relationships and dating and the things aren't working is because we're entering into a space of a facade where it's just, who can I be and how can I act? So therefore I can get chosen in this situation, and I can get quote unquote picked for the team, right? Hey, Tim. And I can get picked for the team. And when we're going into dating in that sense, of course it's heavy. Of course it's complicated. And to be honest, the way like swipe culture works right now, at least from my stance, right? Like I speak on personal experience and things of that nature, is we have plenty of options and there's no shortage, right? And so we can use that as an excuse, or we can use that as a stance of abundance. And it can lead to this, how do I want to phrase this? Like external validation, looking for confidence. And so there's no shortage of meeting people these days. There's shortage of vulnerability. Because it's scary. And it's real and alive that we don't want to be rejected, because at this age, you know, plus 30, whatever, 25, however old you are, we've had a heartbreak or two. And so we get scared. And because we're scared, we have self-protection mechanisms put into place. That's our nervous system, because when we start to feel this like excitement and this crush for someone and this like, oh my God, what if this can work? It's like, oh, our brain does this really cool thing. You can thank your amygdala, you can thank your RAS system. It does this cool thing where it goes into self-protection. It's like, last time you felt this feeling, this happened. And so your body feels things, and then your brain wants to make up a story. That's your nervous system, right? Like, this is why it's so fun to understand your body. To be able to sit there and go, oh, last time I felt this, now my brain's protecting me. Thank you so much. But I don't actually need to be protected right now. I actually want to feel vulnerable. I actually want to be attached. I actually want to have a crush on someone. And how rare that is in this day and age to invite that in. Because how often it is that we have these walls up, and it's not to say that's... Here's the thing, right? Why is dating so complicated, and what can we do about it? That's what I want to move into, is that we're putting our worth and our anger into other people, and we're focusing on other people. We've got to that point, right? But we're also so afraid and so protecting that we're not understanding the difference between mirroring behavior and modeling behavior, right? Like, this is a huge thing in your nervous system and your attachment styles and things of that nature. Like, explaining and, hey, Allie, how are you? Getting ready for a date? No. We're doing these mirroring and modeling techniques, right? But instead of, we're just both mirroring each other. So because we're so protected, and I don't want to be the first one to text, I don't want to, be the first one to call, oh my God, all these kind of things, which especially for women, we're taught not to do that because, quote unquote, you're needy and a guy should pursue you and da-da-da-da-da. But, and to be fair, yes, and, hey, Kim, yes, and, that's a yes thing, right? Because if you're coming from a space of, these are my needs, and you communicate that, yes, I want you to call me. I want you to ask me on a date. I want, this kind of invitation to be enticing and from a space of confidence. There's a spectrum, right? There's one where it's like so protected that, hey, Katie, it's so protected that I don't want to ever text you. I'm never going to call you first. I'm never going to lean in. I'm never going to do the thing. Like, that is so protective, really led by the ego-based kind of dating style. And then there is the needy one where it's texting all the time, blowing up, staring at your phone, when are they going to call me? There's that needy side. There's an in-between that can be modeled. And here's what I see in the dating world is we're all just mirroring the behaviors that the other person is giving us. Because being vulnerable and being brave would be, hey, shooting the text, hey, I'm thinking of you right now. How's your day? What? Especially for someone that's like not a texter or not keeping up between dates, which is something I'm navigating, where it's like, if you're just going to mirror back their behavior, you're just going to keep doing this thing back and forth. And yes, in the beginning stages, that's kind of the vibe because you're trying to figure it out. But if something is happening in your dating life and we're going at it with the same scenario, just swiping it into a different person and not looking at, yes, death to the fucking cool girl. Please. I have an entire post on this, like, good girl, cool girl, like, whatever thing. It's like, ow, my nail literally just fell off. Because we sit in this space of, like, let me protect my ego and let me protect whatever. And then we're mirroring this, like, ping-ponging back and forth of behaviors. But if we want depth and we want vulnerability and we want conversation and we want someone to call us and we want these kind of things, you can get to a point in the dating world where you do the brave thing and you reach out and you model, or you do the risky thing where it's like you give a phone call, because that's for me. I don't want to text you all week, but like I like phone calls, right? Like, how are you? What's going on in your world? Let's riff on something, you know? And so to model that back to someone, and here's where the kicker comes in, my friends. Having enough confidence, because here's what we do. It's like, I get you, it's real and alive, the fear, that rejection, like what if they don't match? Then they don't match. There are billions of people in the world. If you talk about your needs and you describe your needs, or you show your needs and you model your needs and they're not met, that does not make you needy. That means you have boundaries and self-confidence. That means you know what you deserve, which is a good fucking thing and should not be built up walls of protection, but to say, hey, this is what I actually deeply desire. Is this something that you can do? And then this is another stance where it's like, if you've been, this is going to piss me off with this nail. I literally just hit it. I'm getting my nails done tomorrow. You know that stage when it's like they fall off so easily? Anyways, there comes a stage in the relationship, right? I wouldn't say this is like after the first date, but when you get to know each other a little bit more and you're trying to create that culture within your relationship and within that dynamic where it's like, oh, like this is my standard, this is what I expect. And sometimes, and most times in the work that I do, you don't even have to say a fucking thing. Like, who you are and what you do, the energy you give out is like, she takes care of herself. She knows how to communicate. She knows whatever. So I better level up and handle my shit. If there is something within the dynamic, like I literally have to do this later, so I'm speaking this up to you guys, because I was like, how do I want to do this and how do I want to navigate this and whatever and model? Like, this is literally a thing that happens in the dating life. Like, I'm navigating it with you. It doesn't have to be the why don't you ever call? Why don't you ever text in between our dates? Why don't you ever do this? Like, in that kind of motherly, wounded energy, that doesn't feel like a space of confidence. But in a space of, you can lean into the conversation, you can have it, and you can be like, make it playful. And in modern dating, we're losing the playfulness of this. We're losing the childlike joy where, like, you can talk about serious things of like, hey, actually my standard is that we talk at least once a day and you call and da-da-da-da. These are serious conversations, sure. But it doesn't have to be like someone's being punished and in the school system, and here's that, and that's all the thing, right? Does that make sense to you? That is a big one. The way that you communicate, especially when it's like, men are so fucking simple. I'm sorry if anyone gets offended by that, but they are. And women are trying to date as if men are women, and men are trying to date as if women are men. And we're forgetting that we're different sexes, and we think differently, and our hormones are built up differently, and we date differently. And like, if you want something, less is more, women to men. Speak less. Say that, and not in a bad way, but like, be more direct. This is why in my masterminds, it's like, keep what you have to say to a minute. And that is such a challenge, especially for me. I'm a self-projector, so like, I want to talk about everything, and it takes me a while to circle around to get to the point, because I'm processing as I'm speaking it out. But the challenge is, can you simplify it for the message that you want, for the need that you want, and understanding, like, the core piece for women, understanding that your needs do not make you needy. There is a way to communicate them in a way that feels so powerful and alive and rich. And this is why I love the masterminds now, because you get to lean in with the triggers in the heat of it, beyond just like listening to an IG live and being like, oh yeah, because it does get scary. It does get vulnerable. It's a stretch, especially if you haven't done anything like that before. It's going to be like, ugh. But the more you practice using your voice and the more you step into using your voice, the easier it gets. Like driving a car. You were scared shitless when you were driving the car, and then now you're texting and driving and you're looking at the phone and you're, I don't know, putting on your lip gloss, doing your thing. Like, it becomes a natural thing. It's just like this, where you get to express your needs, and because you're so confident in who you are, it's not, I'm doing this and this is like the wounded feminine, and I see this so much, and this is why the girl boss culture, whatever. And I don't mean to mock you, but there's a reason why men are afraid to now even speak to women at bars. why they're afraid to even buy you a drink or come up, because all of a sudden it's like, I have a boyfriend, da, 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 and like, even though you don't, it's like, to have someone come and speak to you, it's like, I am open for any type of conversation. This doesn't have to be someone trying to get in my pants. This could be the next business partner I have. This could be the next gateway. Maybe he has a girlfriend and I'm gonna go meet her and she becomes my best friend. Like, if you look at dating instead of where is my partner and when am I going to be chosen as a networking game, it becomes so much easier. Hey, Emma. It becomes so much easier because you're sitting there and it's like, it may not be you. It may not be you but it could be your friend. Like, a week may not match. And then all of a sudden it could be your friend that, like, I see you out at a bar one day. I'm like, hey, what's up? Whoever. Hey, I see you out, John. And then they're with a friend and then that's your match. Like, you never know. But because we put so much emphasis on will I get chosen, I've noticed I'm genuinely afraid of men. Jenica, that is such a real and alive fear. Like, I too I did a no man's diet for 2 years after my domestically violent relationship. And it wasn't so much that I didn't trust men after that. You know, I have a background with, dealing with sexual assault. I have Hannah. I have domestic violence. I have manipulation. I have narcissism. They all kind of went in this route, right? Where it was like, I was so afraid of men. But what I realized is that I didn't have intuition. I didn't trust myself anymore to notice when a situation wasn't meant for me, because now I don't attract those things. My clients don't attract those things. It's not that they don't exist. They're very real and alive. Not everyone in the world is the best person in the world. But when it comes to being afraid of men, that is so real. And flipping it on its head, it's, where in you do you not trust around men? You see what I mean there? It's taking your power back from that. Because if it's just to label all men, anyone that comes up to you and starts a conversation, anyone that holds eye contact, anyone that walks past you and moves past you, like, those are real. I have felt all of them. But when you have such divine trust in yourself, when you have such a conversation with your body, it becomes safe. And it's working on that. Where can you start to build your trust around men? Where can you start to heal that within yourself so that it becomes this safe place? And it may not be dating right now. It may mean being single and walking with yourself for a bit so that it can become safe, right? Like, it doesn't mean throwing yourself and doing exposure and doing all these kind of things. It could be, for me, it started with staying in by myself because I was so distracted that I couldn't even hear these thoughts, right? And then it started taking myself on solo dates. And then it started solo traveling. And then it started solo evenings by myself. And so my solo dates would be like coffee dates. And then now it's like I take myself out to oysters and martinis and I, lush and give myself a zhazhazhoom kind of day. But like, it's expanding your nervous system in that way of how can I build trust with self in these situations that used to be scary. And that's building your edges. That's growing your nervous system, because otherwise when you feel something in your body, that fear is so real. It's so alive. It's so true. And it's looking at it. And without that meaning anything bad, can you just witness it and go, that's interesting. It's not good or bad. Like, we think fear is like this bad thing. It's like, can you just let yourself be feared in a feared state without it meaning like I'm broken or nothing is working? It's like, no, you're just afraid, and that is what it is. And that's okay. What can bring you back to safety, right? What practices can we start to instill so that we can start to build trust? I like this, knowing I want to track these situations anymore, and then I can feel when they are present because of what I've learned. Exactly. And so you start to really heal, because the hard thing as well, like I said about the common denominator thing, is what's happening in your life is a direct reflection of what your nervous system is trying to protect itself from. So this isn't to say you're at fault. This isn't to say any of those things. Like, I'm not at fault for my sexual assaults. I'm not at fault for, the drug abuse. I'm not at fault for the domestic violence or my mom dying from addiction or the abandonment. Like, I'm not at fault for those things. And whatever happened in your narrative, like, you're not at fault for that. And I want you to know that, but I'm going to speak from my experience because I don't know yours personally. But what I do know to be true is my nervous system actually felt more safe within the chaos. And so I kept trying to blame outside circumstances, like dating being hard, or men being scary, or men being fucking idiots, or money being hard to accumulate, or girls always stabbing me in the back, or friendships sucking, or my family being assholes. Like, all these beliefs that I had, I was putting it all on them, forgetting that everything within me is my power. And so obviously the belief system in my nervous system, if I was stuck in the chaos, if I was stuck in the chaos, and this is where I actually found safety, because even though safety doesn't mean it's good, right? My nervous system actually felt safe in the chaos. So it was attracting that because that's what was safe. And so now my steady state is very calm. Very calm, very, like, I will get spicy and I will get high on life and I will do these kind of things, but, you know, the good gets to become good. It's not coming from a space of, I only learn from chaos. Like, it's no longer that. It's, I learn from good, and then it's so good that I'm like, oh my God, it can get better. Like, I don't know, and it's an edge, and it gets to grow that way, and it gets to be vulnerable. Does that make sense for you? Does that help with you? Let me know. Also, guys, this is a two-way conversation. Let me know. I love it. It gets me high on life when I get to have conversations with you. The other one that I wanted to talk about. So modeling and mirroring, we talked about that for a second in the beginning, of if we want to create a culture that is safe, that they do text, that they feel open to start a conversation, that they want to go on dates and they want to do this. Like, again, talking about like men and women, like men, it's like the instant gratification, you know, to, I don't know, be noticed, to be validated, to have the immediate pleasure. But like the need in life is, you know, genuine connection, fulfillment, to see a future with you, like to be a safe place to land. You hear me say this all the fucking time, especially if you're inside of Sacred Singlehood or you're inside of any of my masterminds or my one-on-one or VIP sessions. Like, you hear me say it all the time. Your job is to become a living sanctuary. Your job is to mirror to the world what you want back, which comes from modeling, right? So, or modeling to the world what you want mirrored back, right? If you are just being in a reactive state, which is just mirroring back to the world, which is what I'm talking about when I was talking to Jenica, of, you know, when we expect chaos and we are mirroring back what we're experiencing, and it's just this like tit for tat. The brave thing is to model what you don't know yet. Vulnerability, openness, communication, needs, wants, desires. And then you know from that straight on, with that date, with that person, whatever, that if after a while, like, it's not going to happen right away. The first time you model something, they're not going to catch up. That's a given. But you give yourself a number of how many times you're going to do this and how you want to communicate it in a playful way. So it's an open conversation of like, this is it, da-da-da-da, here's my desires, here's my wants, here's my needs. And if it's not modeled back, you have the choice to leave. You have the choice. And to build that confidence, like, true confidence comes from who you are, not from all the things that you have around you. And I know that's going to take time to land, but this is how it works. Oh my goodness. Anyone that's listening to this on the podcast is going to be like, oh my God. I'm squealing so much because I see so many fun faces pop in here. But when we're I forget where I'm at right now. I got distracted by that. But as we are navigating things and trying to mirror and model and have these things come back into our life, it's our responsibility, right? This being the living sanctuary, that's where I was at on that. And the last thing one of the last things that I wanted to touch on is red flags and closure. So we spend a lot of time, from what I hear in my VIP sessions, which, by the way, if you're looking to ditch the apps, we have some sessions. If you haven't seen my announcement, we have that open right now, with 7 days of integration. A lot in the sessions is like these red flags, like, oh, they do this feels icky, this feels this, this reminds me of my ex, like this, they act this way, they spit this way, they speak this way, they whatever. And it's not to say we're not allowed to have standards, and we're not allowed to have boundaries, and we're not allowed to do things, but we're so quick to write things off in this culture, this swipe culture, because, hey, if you're not a match for me and you head up a red flag, I can easily go swipe and there's 1,000 more people down the block for me. And we forget to ask the question for ourselves. I wonder what happened in their life that made them respond that way. Like, perfect example of this. I never went on a date with this guy because I was like, already not my vibe, but I'm curious. Because we had been chatting on Bumble and he had asked me for a photo. And I was like, bold, no. I have an Instagram if you want. But instead, like, I could feel at first, like, red flag, this doesn't work for me. But then my initial follow-up was, what happened to you in your dating life that made you not trust that I look the way that I look? And that's opened up a real conversation for us. And although it didn't go anywhere, that's what it is, where it's like, instead of looking at, fuck this person, and oh my God, they triggered me, and oh my God, I'm offended, like, to remove the red flag and start with a curious lens and forget and remember that we are all a bunch of traumatized 7-year-olds stuck in adult human meat suits trying to self-protect ourselves in this world that we live in. We have so much unhealed and addressed trauma that we get uncovered in relationships. Like, relationships are the one portal of activation that will shift everything inside you. That's why they're so vulnerable. That's why they're so tender. That's why they're so scary. That's why we're avoiding vulnerability. And can you give the compassion that you pray for? Because you're not on all the time either, right? Like, I work in this and I am not on all the time. Like, I literally went to brunch with the guy that I have a crush on. I'm not sure if he has a crush on me back either, so just kidding, I know he does. But we went to brunch with his, like, friends, and all of a sudden I, like, got, like, shy and, like, quiet. And I was like, I feel scared and I don't know what to do right now. And, like, to sit there and just be like, oh, like, if someone were to judge me for this version of me, lame. So can we actually lean in? And he did. He was like, oh, like, that was different, that was cute, that's like a part of you. And I was like, yeah, it is, very much so. And so it's looking at things like that, where it's like, can you, instead of seeking out red flags and going for self-protection mechanisms, because we have plenty of people on the internet that we can lean into, can you be vulnerable? Can you stop looking for the red flags and start a deep conversation as to why do you do that? Not in an accusatory mother way, in the playful communication way. That's where you can start actually having deeper conversations with a lot of people. I've realized aren't used to doing that. It's like the weather and the sports and where'd you go to school and whatever, like, what's your past relationship life? And it's like, can you ask a deeper question? And so Allie asked, I'm going on a first date, what's your number one piece of advice? Become the type of person that doesn't have to triple think what they're saying and doing. Like, just be you. Be you. Like, don't put on a facade. Don't do this whole thing. Like, it's not like, I do kind of bite my tongue on that, because it's like, don't put all of us on the table. Like, that's a lot at first, but it's like, can you just be the same way you were when you were with me and we got drinks for the first time and got brunch for the first time? And, like, let that be enough without thinking there's, like, some 10-step process that I have to get so they will then love me. It's like, that doesn't exist. People like that suck on the internet. You're never going to see that come out of my mouth. Except for when it comes to nutrition. That's definitely a thing that I do. Wade! Also, everyone, Wade and Laura Days are doing an event tonight. Please go look at it. It's all about their love, and they're my favorite little couple for expanding my nervous system and what couple is. So, hi! Go check them out. So, yes. So, the first one would be you. Like, we spend a lot of time... What's that number one thing on the checklist that can, whatever. Mama Gina says, put pussy juice on your neck. She says, don't wear underwear. There's other people that say, like, lean back, don't say anything, be mysterious. There's other people that say lean forward, ask all the questions so you can know them, and ask the revealing questions. Like, what is most comfortable for you? And that part of your nervous system is going to match to theirs. Because when you're a living sanctuary for someone else, instead of feeling like this is a job interview or, you know, like I'm genuinely just here because this is really fun for me. And I don't really give a fuck where this goes. The intention obviously is there, but like I'd make it about you. Make dating about you. Who do you want to become in this process? Because there's going to be a time in your life when you are in love and you got your little babies running around and they're, you know, jumping and doing, and you're 15 years into your marriage and you're like, oh my God, you're the only dick I'm going to look at for the rest of my life. And all the kind of things are happening. And it's like, instead of rushing this chapter right now, how sacred can you make it of who you get to become? Do you want to be the relaxed? Do you want to be the sensual? Do you want to be, you know, the maiden? Do you want to be the mystic? Like, do you want to be the goddess? Like, there are so many different female archetypes that we get to play into, and it's like, who do you want to become in this journey? And that's at least how I've taken it since my breakup, is just like, I've been so many people in this, and this is my favorite version, you know, because there is no masks. If you ever have gotten coffee with me, if you've ever gone on a date with me, if you've ever had a conversation with me, this is exactly the way I am. This is exactly the way. Even when I have a crush, like sometimes I'll get shy when I'm out with our friends and I've only had a few hours of sleep because, like, yeah, sure. But that is also a part of you. And so instead of trying to become the person that gets chosen, or the person that's like, how do I get them to fall in love with me? How do I get them to be the one? It's like, how do you get to become the type of person that doesn't even worry about that? It's no longer about the how. It's just the who are you being? And that's what comes from it. And I get it, because it's like we spend a lot of time in like the whole wishy-washy questions. Like, I feel this. Like, it comes up where it's like, what are we? What is this? What are we doing? Kind of feeling. And it's so real. But the reason is because we want some type of closure. We want some type of understanding. Where am I headed in this narrative between us? Right? And to be in that space of like, how can you create clarity from a space of groundedness, of realness? That, I kid you not, like, if I had a man sit down in front of me, and I have, where it's like, this is what I want, this is what I'm doing to desire, to get to that desire. I don't know if it's you, but this way looks good. Should we walk that way on that path and see what happens? It's like, yeah. And that's because you know what you want. It's not just waiting to get chosen. It's not just waiting for someone to choose you and, you know, to fall in love and whatever. It's like you live your life because it's a romance novel of your life. And in this space, you're becoming the best version of yourself, so that when that person does come, you're like, I am so me. And now you get that version of me, and I get inside of the context of a relationship, we're going to be triggered and we're going to grow, and it's all these kind of things, but it's like, you get the very best version of me now. I'm not going to wait to do that until you get here. Right? And so, let's see, is that conversation question even necessary? What's the intention? Was that the question? Or like, what are we doing here? I think that's what I asked. For some people it is, right? We want a big human need, certainty and uncertainty. Those are different things. We want excitement, we love surprise, and we want to know what we're doing. And so it gets to a point, and so here's the way that I would articulate this, right? If you're at that stage of dating and you've gone on a few dates and you want to know what's happening, like making sure they're not a fuckboy and what have you, or girl, we do it too, it's fine. And having that kind of conversation, it's like, hey, like, I just want to make sure we're on this. And that can come from, like, the conversation you have, right? Like, I go into every date, I am looking for the love story of the ages. I am looking for something that doesn't even make sense, but it's going to be so grounding and so beautiful. And, like, I'm not going to stop until that happens. I believe it to be true in every fiber of my being. And if that's not you, that's cool. We can chill. We can have snacks. We can do whatever. But, like, also that's my vibe. Whether that's you or not, that's fine. I'm not saying this is what this is, but that's my intention with this. I'm not here to fuck around anymore. And that's my boundary. If I came into that conversation with what are we? When am I going to meet your parents? like the different kind of like needy kind of like, what are we? Because this makes me very, uncomfortable and da da da. Like it's a different kind of vibe. It's like I can come in and it's like, this is what I'm doing. And if this doesn't meet my standard, this is what I want. Like, I don't. And again, it's like an assertive way, and it's playful and it's silly and it's feminine and what have you. Like, again, the communication process is, and it's like, no, you don't have to ask that question, what are we, on the first date. But it is really helpful for your nervous system to know that the intention is clear. I am looking for my person. Whether that is you, I don't know. But if that's not your intention here, then I don't really see this going anywhere. Because here's the thing, people. Believe people's words when they tell you. Believe them. We don't get to change people. We meet them exactly where they're at and stop falling in love with potentiality of a person. Love them for who they are in this moment, right here, right now. There is literally a person for everyone. When we become a match to our match. If we continually cycle through wondering, why do I keep dating the same people? Or why does this type of person keep happening? Or why do my dates end after 3 months? Or why, what else do I hear often? The apps don't work, or everyone just wants to have sex. Whatever it is. I don't even know if I can say sex on this thing, but oops. If that's the same thing that's coming up, it's like, you're the only common denominator. So if you want to change that, look at that. Where's the roadblock? What would it feel like to you to actually have a love story for the ages? Are you ready for it? Have you leaned into this? Has it felt so good? Has it, where are we at in the conversation with self? Because you're a fucking dime and a half. You are a dime and a half. And if something in your life has happened where it's told you differently, let it be. Witness that fear. Without it meaning anything is good or bad, or thinking without giving it a narrative, just witnessing it from a bird's eye view, looking at that story that you're telling yourself without it meaning good or bad, and just feeling that fear of like, yeah, I am afraid to actually be loved. That's an edge. So therefore I'm picking unavailable men. Oh. So can we shift that? Can we become something bolder? Can we become this confident queen? Can we really step into this portal of what we deeply desire? Because it's not the apps. It's not the city that you live in. Whatever else. It's the beliefs that you have about you. And that gets to shift. Like right now, that gets to shift. Like we're going into the weekend. I think it's Friday. Yes, it's Friday. We're going into the weekend. Can you have a cheeky flirt without it meaning this is going to be your husband or your wife? Can you get dressed up for you? Can you go out, just have a good time with your girlfriends, but be open to receiving an invitation? Can you have a conversation with someone that maybe you've been seeing, but you're like, I don't really know what this is. So not saying we gotta like define it, but what path are we on right now? Can you help me out with that? And can you start to model instead of mirror? That's the biggest thing. Relationships, dating, it's not as complicated as we're making it out to see. It's not, like I literally, when I hear people say it, I'm like, I don't subscribe to that. I don't subscribe to dating being hard. I don't subscribe to relationships being hard. I don't subscribe to dieting or nutrition being hard. I don't subscribe to making money is hard. Like, I just don't. Because that's a choice. I'm sure it's real and alive for other people, sure. And it was for me for years. It took work to get to this space, but I don't subscribe to it. And so I'm offering you that. What do you want to model to the world that you want mirrored back to you? Because you have so much power, you have so much strength, you have so much knowledge. Like, this gets to be such a fun, turned on state of being. Because one day you're going to be married and have your things, and you're going to look back and be like, I really wish I didn't rush that chapter. I really wish I savored it and learned more about myself and traveled and got to have these conversations and got to go on dates with really cool people and learn and grow and not rush it. Like, if you believe that love, something I love about high level mentorship and what my mentor always reflects back to me and the group of women that we're surrounded with is it's an infinite game. If you know that without a shadow of a doubt you're gonna fall in love, I have no doubt in my mind, my love story, I don't have words. I know that. And so if I know that's coming, what's the rush of needing to know if this person is going to be them? If it is them, what's the rush? Because it's going to eventually turn into something and then we have our whole lives together. So what's the rush there? Of getting this phase of being giddy about a man and it's the way you look at it, right? We get to choose this. And so that's my riff on why dating has gotten complicated, because we've complicated it. We've mirrored back what has been being mirrored to us instead of modeling what we want. Communicating from a high standard, being bold, being brave, being vulnerable, falling on our heart and letting that be, literally finding safety in the fact that fear is an edge, and that's totally cool. Now I know when I feel fear, that's my edge, and edging turns me on. So this turns me on when it's an edge. It's this is where we get to go with the conversation. It's not complicated. It's easy because it is, because you claimed it to be as such right now on this call. So how can you make it easy? How can you become someone that isn't worried about getting chosen, but is worried about becoming someone that doesn't have to second guess what they say or who they are or what they're doing and what game and how quickly they text back? How can you just become a match for your life? So that's my riff. If you know anyone that could benefit, share this with them. We love them. If you're listening to this over here, I love you guys so much. We have the dating micromind that is happening and filling on the back end. It's going to be starting in 3 to 4 weeks. And that's going to be a high touch, high caliber, quantum leaping into love mastermind that is happening. It's niche focused instead of, the broad mastermind. This one is niched, and it's going to be for 30 days. And the thing about that is it's fun to learn these things through podcasts and listening and books, but there is no better feeling than when you're in the midst of a trigger and you can go on your phone and you can voice note and someone can walk you through that. And it's not just a girlfriend, it's actually an expert in the field that can navigate and reprogram the nervous system so that dating becomes fun, so that we are a match for our match, right? So this is filling on the back end. I also have Ditch the Dating App VIP sessions, which we announced yesterday, and they're filling on the back end. And so that's going to be a 1-hour call with me. We're going to dismantle all the dating beliefs and all the things that you've been happening, really do a deep dive into personally what you've been doing. And then it's going to be 7 days of personalized support through Voxer. So you get to actually integrate. So this is the step beyond just we go to one therapy session and there we go. And now what do I do? It's you get those 7 days of quantum leaping your heart and putting these practices and these tools and the plans and what have you that we put together on your call. So we have that available, and then we have the dating micromind that is filling on the back end. So if that's where you're at in your life and you're I'm so fucking ready to be the best version of me, to fall in love, Melissa, to fall in love, to quantum leap, to feel good about this process, and to really do this in a regulated, empowered, bold, brave, feminine way. This is the most fun I've been having in my life, and the women in my world, it's a treat. This is for you. So I love you. You're beautiful. You have a nice butt. It's the weekend. Go shake that butt like it's the 90s. And enjoy your weekend. I love you. Bye.